to these others in a minute, but let's just explore this differentness first. I actually think this might be the biggest cause of us finding other people difficult, and it's just that they're different to us. And there are lots of models of personality and behavior, but I just want to spend about 20 minutes just showing you one that I find really useful. And it basically says that you've got four main types of person. By the way, this whiteboard, I'm going to take a nice high quality photo of it at the end and send it to you. So you don't have to worry about trying to get a screenshot, although feel free to make notes, but I will send you a picture of this via Daniel at the end. You'll get it emailed, okay? So what this model says is that all of us are somewhere on a scale from introvert to extrovert, from quiet to outgoing and talkative. So on the left-hand side, we'll have the people who are definitely on the quiet end of things. So they're kind of careful, they're good listeners, good with the detail. I actually think a lot of engineers are towards the left-hand end of this scale, the introvert end. And the extrovert end, we've got the outgoing, talkative people. Chatty, decisive, quick to make decisions, sometimes too quick. We've got the extroverts. And you'll be somewhere on that scale. You might be right in the middle. By the way, we all think we're normal. Often people think they're in the middle, but they're not. And one thing you can do is you can ask your friends where they think you are on the scale, and they'll probably tell you. So that's the first scale on this little diagram. The second scale, the vertical axis, is what they call your decision-making preference. How do you make your decisions? So the top two make their decisions based on logic. So that it's all based on facts and reasons and numbers. You know, if they're buying a car, for example, they'll look at fuel economy and resale value and insurance bracket and things like that. Whereas the bottom two boxes make their decisions based on emotions. So they're much more ruled by their heart rather than their head. So it's all about feelings, and they're people. So I don't know whether it's true, but certainly in England, we expect the Italians to be emotional in their decision making. You know, so when we won the World Cup in 1966, we went, oh, that's very nice. Well done, us. Whereas when the Italians won the World Cup in about 1980 something, when I was there in Italy, actually, they went crazy. And they were driving around the streets, sitting on the top of cars, and they were just playing the trumpet all night and stuff. It was just madness. And Italian cars are, you know, all about the emotion, aren't they? All about the beauty and the sound of them and the color of them. And so I'm sure there are Italians who are logical in their decision making, but we tend to think of them as emotional. Whereas the Germans, we tend to think of as more logical and methodical. But, you know, there's obviously emotional Germans as well. So you can't really generalize, but people do. So anyway, we've got decision-making preference and we've got extrovert, introvert, and that gives us four combinations. And I'll explain what this has got to do with difficult people in a minute, okay? So quickly to look at the four, I'd be interested to know which of these you think you are. So first of all, we've got the top left ones, which are the logical, quiet people, and these are the analyticals. So these are the accountants, the engineers usually. These are the people who like to have lots of detail, nice spreadsheet, look at all the pros and cons before they make a decision. You know, do things properly, do things thoroughly. Not going to leave it as anal, though. I'm going to put analytical, I'll squeeze it in, analytical people. Okay, and if you're doing the color version of this, they're known as blue people. So I'm using the blue pen for them. I wonder if anybody thinks that they are an analytical. Do you want to put your hand up if you are an analytical? And you might have there might be a hand. There's a raise your hand button as well, isn't there? Let's see if anybody. Yeah, I expect we'll get quite a lot. And in fact, if I were you, I would take that because the other three are worse. It's all going to go downhill from now. So yeah, and I started out as an analytical person. I did a degree in engineering, as Daniel mentioned, and you know, when I was a teenager, I used to draw mazes. I was fascinated by mazes. I still quite like mazes, actually. And I was I loved it when I first saw a spreadsheet. Oh, I couldn't believe it. Absolutely loved it. But I went into management, and management made me become more of a red person. I drifted across and became a controller. Can't really fit the words in, I'm afraid, but controllers, they don't fit in the box and they don't care about that. In fact, they're proud to not fit in a box. So you could spot controllers because they use words like plan of attack and bullet points and I haven't got time for this and losing the will to live and phrases like that. So yeah, bullet and what? Yeah, just and sorted. Controllers love the word sorted. Like, have you got it sorted yet or not? Well, just sort it. So controllers, and they use this gesture. I don't want that. I want this. Just do it. So controllers, tough, decisive. That's what they're like, and they're sometimes called red people. Does anybody think they might be a controller? Does anybody like to just get in, solve problems? If people get in the way, then that's just tough. They get squashed, sort of thing. Anybody got any controllers there? Anybody proud to be a controller? So yeah, I can't answer Chris's question, by the way, but oh, well done, JM, controller there. Yeah, proud to be a controller. Does the world need controllers? Well, yes. I mean, somebody's got to make the tough decisions. Somebody's got to get on and decide things and fire people and close down parts of companies that are loss-making and things like that. Somebody's got to do that. And controllers aren't bad people. They're trying to improve the world, but they're trying to do it by, by sorting it out rather than analysing it. And blue people sometimes are a bit too careful, weighing up all the pros and cons, a bit indecisive, whereas red people just get in and do it. So, who's to say which one's better? They're just different. Right, then we've got the yellow people. If I use a yellow pen, you won't be able to see it, so I'm going to use the black for this. The people who are outgoing, like the controllers, but instead of being logical like the controllers, they're much more emotional. These are the outgoing, emotional people, and these are the enthusiasts. I want you to imagine that's written in yellow. Just put ENTH for the enthusiasts. Okay, so the enthusiasts are the fun people. These are the people who are interested in an exciting vision of the future. They just want everything to be great. And they love variety and excitement and that sort of thing. So Andrew Roper's got his hand up. I don't know whether you're still volunteering to be a red or whether you're volunteering to be yellow or whether you want to ask me something. I don't know. Do you want to ask me something, Andrew? No, you're right. Okay. So the enthusiasts. Okay, that's the enthusiasts. So they're into fun, excitement, variety. If you ring them up, they probably won't be there. They'll probably be out having lunch with a customer or something like that. But they're creative and they're courageous. Because those things come almost from the child in you, the creativity and the courage. So does anybody think they might be an enthusiast? Disorganized but creative. Anybody want to put their hand up for an enthusiast? I'm expecting this to be the rarest in this group of people we've got here. Yeah, I can't see any at the moment. Oh, Abdul, okay. Excellent. From Amman. I must go to Amman. If it's full of enthusiasts, that's my kind of place. Not that I am one, but I wish I was. I admire people who can just have fun with no thought of tomorrow. I wish I could do that. Anyway, the last one, the green people. These are the people who are also, ruled by their heart and their feelings and things, but they're much quieter than the enthusiast. These are the amiables. Amiables. The lovely, lovely amiables. So these are the people who care. These are people they're into things like trust and relationships and security and teamwork and things. These are the nice people. By the way, if you ring somebody up, you'll know probably in the first 5 seconds because the amiable will go, "Hello, my name's Chris. How are you?" And they have like a soft voice. Whereas the enthusiast will probably not be there. They'll go, "Hi, how are you? Sorry, my phone's not working at the moment." The controller's like, "Yes, what do you want?" And then the analytical will be, "Hello, my name is Chris from the accounts department. How can I help you?" And they're very sort of structured and logical. So you can almost tell by the way they talk. So the amiable, soft talking, really nice, really caring sort of person. Does anybody think they might be an amiable, by the way? Have we got anybody here who's a caring type of person? Oh, yeah, I can see Tina's got a hand up. Yes. And view all. What else? I can't click view all and see them all. Oh, yeah. Dominic, Mariella. So, yeah, I've got some greens. Right. So they're all fine. And in fact, you need all four types in a good team. All right. There's no better or worse between any of these. But the problems happen between them. And that's why I decided to put into this talk about difficult people. The problems happen across the diagonals. So if you think about it, what is the analytical going to think of the enthusiast? What are they going to think about the disorganized, crazy, creative enthusiast? And the analytical is going to find them a bit of a nightmare. They're going to be thinking, well, why is this person so disorganized? Why can't they get a grip? How can they live their life like that? You go around and see them and they say, would you like some coffee? Sorry, I've run out of milk. In fact, I've run out of coffee as well, but never mind. I'll just wash you up a mug, and you just think, how can they live like that? So, but similarly, what does the enthusiast think of the analytical? And they're just thinking, God, they're so boring. Why don't they have some fun? Why don't they just let go and just do something crazy for a change? So if you are an analytical, your difficult people will probably be the enthusiasts. And if you're an enthusiast, your difficult person will be the analytical. And what can you do? And the answer is adapt to the other person. Ideally, you'd meet in the middle. Ideally, the enthusiast would be a little bit more organized. The analytical would let go a little bit and they'd meet in the middle. But if you want to be a really great person, you won't expect everybody to meet you in the middle. You'll adapt to them. So you'll let go and have a bit of fun when you're with the enthusiasts, for example. And if you're an enthusiast, you'll get a grip and try to have a little list and a bit of a plan before you go and see an analytical person. Okay? And that's why salespeople have to adapt to all four of these. And in our working life, we do, really. The other diagonal is equally problematic because what does the amiable think of the controller? And the answer is they think that they're scary and nasty and a bit of a bully, quite intimidating and rude. And the controller's going, come on, why haven't you sorted it out yet? And the amiable's going, oh, no. And then what does the controller think of the amiable? And the answer is they think that they're weak and, weak and just too wishy-washy, and why don't they just get a grip? So you can see that they're both going to find each other difficult. And I'm a bit of a controller. I'm a bit of a red myself. But sometimes I go and see an ultra controller, so I'm sort of about here. I'm quite near the blue. And I see a real far out to the edge red person. And I find them really scary. And they're going, come on, Chris, come on, tell me about it. I'm thinking, well, I don't know. So I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of controllers. But the customers that I dread are actually the amiables, because although they're incredibly nice, firstly, they take too long. You have to go and have a bit of tea with them and sit on a sofa and you have to show you pictures of their cat and all that. And I'm thinking, look, just decide, do you want to do this training or not? So they're frustrating because they take so long, but also they don't make their mind up. They go, I just need a bit longer to decide. And I just want to ask a few colleagues what they think. And I'm thinking, just decide. So as a red, I find greens difficult, even though I am married to one. My wife's incredibly nice, but sometimes she doesn't do something that she said she was going to do. And I just think, why hasn't she done it? And it turns out she's putting it off because it's slightly unpleasant. It involves saying something to someone that they may not want to hear. And my wife puts it off. And I'm just thinking, why haven't you done it? And rather than worrying about it, just get it done. But that's a very red view of the world, isn't it? So again, I should meet her in the middle or even go right across into her green box and try to understand her green world. By the way, although the problems happen across the diagonals on here, the interesting thing is that the best marriages and the best working partnerships are across the diagonals. So if you're a classic engineer and you're in the blue box, you actually should marry an enthusiast. Your other half, male or female, whatever, should be a fun person who pulls you out of your comfort zone. So when you go on holiday, you're the one who, makes sure the ferry goes on Sunday and checks the visa and all that. And they're the one who books the foam party and, pulls you out of your comfort zone and takes you rock climbing or whatever it might be. And it's good for you to have an enthusiast, and it's good for them to have an analytical to look after them. So the best partnerships are actually across the diagonal. It's actually good for you to be with somebody who you find difficult. Because two analyticals will understand each other and have a great time comparing spreadsheets or playlists on Spotify or whatever it might be. But they won't get as much done because you need to be pulled out of your comfort zone by somebody with a dream, somebody crazy, and that's where you need the the enthusiast. And similarly with me and my wife, she's the one who remembers people's birthdays and notices that people are unhappy and all that sort of thing. And then it's me that, complains in a restaurant if the service isn't very good and negotiates over the price of things and all the sort of stuff that she absolutely hates. Whereas I don't mind doing that. I'll just get in and do that. So partnerships across the diagonal. So that's the first bit I wanted to talk about. Some people are just different to us, and it's fine. It's nobody's fault. And the game is to adapt to these different types of people. This is just one model of personality. There's lots of others. By the way, I don't know if you've seen Myers-Briggs. Have you ever seen the Myers-Briggs type indicator? That's the most well-known personality theory in the world. It's actually not based on any science at all. It was made up by two people. But in there, they talk about things like ENTJ, and ISFP, and all the combinations of those. So you'll get things like ESTJ and INFP and whatever combination. And the E and the I is what I've been talking about here, quiet and outgoing. And the T and the F, thoughts and feelings, are what I've been talking about here. So these ones make their decisions based on thinking. These ones make their decisions based on feelings. So we've been looking at a subset of Myers-Briggs. If you ever do the Myers-Briggs questionnaire, which is free online, you can find out what you are. But the best way to find out what you are is to ask your friends, because they'll tell you, of my four, they'll tell you which of the four. The other way to find out what you are is to think about who you find most difficult. If you find red people really scary and horrible, you're a green. If you find yellow people just a nightmare because they're so disorganized, then you're a blue. So, thinking about your opposite seems to be easier than trying to work out what you are. Okay. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you about. Now let's go on to the second bit of die. Okay. Moving on between people who are just different are the people who are incomplete. I'm going to put incomplete. Now, sometimes I say incompetent, but that's a bit harsh. And really, incomplete is a better word to use. So these are people who are difficult because their skills are incomplete. They're bad at something. Let's suppose, for example, they're a good person, except they're disorganized. Their time management skills are not very good. So they turn up late to meetings, and that annoys you, and you find them difficult. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. It's just that their skills are incomplete. Or it could be that you've got somebody who their interpersonal skills aren't very good and they interrupt a lot, or they get distracted easily and they're looking at their phone all the time when you're trying to talk to them, and you find that annoying. And it doesn't mean they're a bad person. They're just incompetent in one area. So the question is, what should we do? By the way, this could be the biggest cause of difficult people, couldn't it? Because we've all got things we're not perfect at. We are all incomplete. So, for example, I will confess to being impatient. I'm not good at being patient. And so if somebody's a bit slow, I find them difficult. But it's not their fault. They're just thorough. In fact, quite often blue people, I do find myself getting impatient with them because I'm a bit of a red person. And so, my skills are incomplete when it comes to being patient. That's one of my numerous faults. So what are we supposed to do if we're dealing with somebody like this? And the answer is, ideally, they would change, because they're the one in the wrong. They're the ones who've got the gap in their skills. But of course, you can't go through life expecting everybody else to become perfect, even if you tell them. They're not going to go, oh, sorry, yes, I'll just fix that. And I'll turn up on time every time now. So probably we have to live with other people's incompleteness and find ways to work around it. So if you're having a meeting with somebody who's always late, I think it is worth saying, by the way, did you know you're always late? I mean, it's worth telling them, but it's unlikely they're going to change. There's a phrase I really like, actually, which says, the reasonable person adapts to the world. The unreasonable person tries to adapt the world to them. But all progress comes from the unreasonable person. And that's engineers in a nutshell, isn't it? We are trying to make the whole world better through engineering. And we look at something and we just think, no, that's not good enough. We're going to fix that. We're going to find a way to fix that. And I think that's great. So I think we should keep trying to make the world better. And I think if somebody turns up late regularly to your meeting, you should call them on it. You shouldn't just live with it. You should call them on it and say, look, you're always late and it's a problem. But given that they probably are going to continue doing it, the second option is to have a workaround and, invite them early or bring stuff to the meeting that you can do while you wait for them. Or, talk to the others about something else until they get there, deal with the menu items that they're not concerned with before they get there, or deal with the menu items that they are concerned with before they get there, so that next time they turn up on time. So, there are things you can do. So I think workarounds are probably the essence with these people whose skills are incomplete. But I do want to say something about one of the biggest areas where people's skills are incomplete, which is to do with assertiveness. So I'll draw a little thing down the bottom here. So we are animals, and we are designed to fight or flight, aren't we? So fight or flight. This is built into our system. So when we get a difficult situation or a difficult person, our first reaction is fight or flight. So we either, challenge them on it, or we run away, or basically just live with it. And so this is aggression over here, being aggressive. I think it's got 2 G's. Has it got 2 G's? I think it has. And then over here, we've got being passive. So we don't always run away. In the modern world, we sometimes just sit there. We just sit in a meeting and we say nothing. So we either have a go or we say nothing. And what some people do is they say nothing and they put up with things for ages, possibly years. They bottle it all up and then suddenly one day they explode and they suddenly swing to the other end of the spectrum. But we basically have these two things programmed into us because, if you meet a crocodile in the jungle or something, and it's coming towards you, you've only got 2 options. You've either got to run away or you've got to fight the crocodile. You can't reason with it and say, excuse me, I do understand that you're a large carnivore, but I'd quite like to retain possession of my leg if that's all right with you. Or you can't do that. You have to either punch the crocodile in the face or you have to run away. So we have adrenaline that pumps into our system and helps us run away or fight. And we're designed for that. Because in a meeting with a customer, say, or a colleague, you can't punch them in the face and you can't run away, even though the adrenaline is making you want to. You have to go for a third option. So we have to overcome our animal side of it. And so being assertive is the third option. And I'm going to put it up here. Assertive. Right? It's not a halfway point between these two. It's different. Because if you think about rights, aggressive people, if you were aggressive, you would stick up for your own rights, but you don't care about anybody else's. Whereas if you're too passive, you don't stick up for your own rights. You respect other people's rights, but you don't stick up for your own rights. I'm going to put not your own rights. Right? You allow other people to have their rights, but you don't stand up for your own. But assertiveness is about doing both. It's about respecting other people's rights, but also defending your own rights. So it's like a win-win. And this would be win-lose, and this would be lose-win, but this is win-win. Okay. And so people whose skills are incomplete, quite often they're too aggressive in difficult situations, or they're too passive, too submissive in difficult situations. And I think we should call them on it, by the way, and I'll tell you how in a minute. But we shouldn't allow people to be aggressive. And we should help people who are too passive to speak up. But while I'm on this diagram, there is one more combination I just want to mention, because we've got win-win. I'll write it in there. We've got win-win. We've got win-lose. We've got lose-win. But there is one more combination, which is lose-lose. The worst one of all. And this is people who are passive-aggressive. So this is a combination of being too passive and aggressive, but at the same time. I've got a little story I'm going to tell you, which illustrates this brilliantly. Is it 2 G's? I don't know. I'm going to keep doing it now. Okay, so passive aggressive. I'll give you an example. This is a true story that somebody told me. There's a lady on a training course I was running, and she just got this brand new car, the Skoda, a brand new Skoda, and pretty good car. And she drove it to the supermarket on the first day, and she pulled up next to a Rolls Royce. And just after she's pulled up, the Rolls Royce lady got out of her car and opened the door, and it banged into the side of the Skoda. And Rolls Royce doors, huge, great, heavy things made out of granite or something. It banged into the Skoda. And she got out of the car, closed her door, and marched off to the supermarket. And the Skoda lady immediately jumped out of her car, went running round to the other side and had a look. And sure enough, there was a dent in the side of her brand new Skoda. What would you do? Well, if you were aggressive, to be honest, it would probably be my first reaction. I would run after the Rolls Royce lady and have a go. Say, you stupid cow, you've just dented my brand new car. You're going to have to pay for this. And the finger would be out and I'd be shouting at her. And it's not a totally terrible course of action, because the chances are she is going to go, oh, I'm terribly sorry, have some money, and so I might actually get the money from her. It's possible. So that's the aggressive option. Okay. There's also the passive option. So, what I could do is just sit in the car and think, oh, typical of my luck. I probably parked a bit too close to her. It's probably my fault. I'll just have to live with the dent, but never mind. It's only a small dent. And that's an option. The assertive option, which is the best one, is to run after her and calmly, without being angry, just calmly say, excuse me, you probably didn't notice just then, but when you opened your door, it banged into the side of my car. It's left a dent. And it's my brand new car and I'm quite upset. And is there any chance that you could pay for it? And just calmly ask for the money. That is the best option, because that's the most likely chance you've got of getting her to pay. Because if you shout at her, she might shout back. She might get angry back. And, being aggressive to people doesn't always work. Sometimes they're aggressive back. Sometimes they don't like you being aggressive. So you want to calmly ask for what you want. But what actually happened was none of those three. What actually happened was that the Skoda lady jumped out of her car, went round, saw the dent in her car, was really, really annoyed. She got out her keys, her brand new keys, and she went up and down the side of the Rolls Royce, and she scratched all the paint off the side of the Rolls Royce. She said it felt great. But that's a terrible thing to do, because now you've got two damaged cars. The Skoda still has a dent. It hasn't fixed the Skoda. All it means is that the Rolls Royce lady is going to come back and think, oh, somebody's jealous of my Rolls Royce. She's not going to think, oh, I must never dent a Skoda again. She's not going to know why it's happened. She's just going to think, oh, typical. Chances are there's a camera watching it all, and the Skoda lady's going to get into trouble. So it's lose-lose. You've got two cars damaged now. It doesn't fix anything. And it's certainly not going to stop the Rolls-Royce lady doing it again next time, because she doesn't know, why it's happened. The reason it's called passive aggressive is because the person was aggressive towards the property of the Rolls-Royce lady. So they were aggressive towards her property, but they were passive. They were submissive towards her. They didn't dare actually go and confront her. They just took it out on her car. So when you criticize somebody behind their back and go, oh, that Daniel Fantoni, he's terrible, isn't he? I can't believe he's so disorganized. If you say that to somebody else, you're being kind of aggressive towards Daniel, but you're also being passive and submissive towards him. You're not actually saying it to him. So, not that anyone would say that, of course. So it's quite easy to be passive aggressive, because we've got the adrenaline and we want to have a go at somebody, but we're also too frightened to actually confront them. So we do that mixture. But that's the worst of all. It'd be better to just suck it up and do nothing. But the best thing is to be assertive and go and talk to them. Okay? So when we're dealing with difficult people, sometimes we're dealing with people who are aggressive, and we should stand up to them. And I'm going to give you a form of words in a minute you can use when you encounter somebody aggressive. And when we're being too passive, we should try to be assertive instead. And we should think, no, I'm not going to just let it happen. I'm going to say something. And again, we need a form of words of how to be assertive, which I'm going to come to. Okay. So I think, this balance between passive and aggressive is quite difficult to get in real life. And, you know, I quite often don't say things. And sometimes afterwards, I think I probably should have said something. I was a bit too passive. Sometimes I get a bit annoyed and I'm a bit too aggressive. It's hard to get it right. It's hard to be assertive because it's not wired into us because we're animals. But suppose we've decided we are going to say something. By the way, my screen is flickering slightly, and I don't know why, but we'll have to just live with that. Doesn't seem to be too bad. I'm sorry about that, Daniel. Probably somebody's digging a hole in.
No, it's a fault. It's happening to my two screens as well. So
oh, is it? Oh, okay. I wondered whether somebody was digging up the road outside my house or something. But
anyway. No, it's Teams going.
Yeah. Anyway, if you can see me or hear me, it'll be all right. So suppose we're going to say something to an aggressive person, or suppose we're going to say something. We're a bit too passive and we've decided we want to say something. What would be the words to use? My screen's really breaking up now. It's really. Can everybody else see me? Can I ask, for example, Chris Monk? I can see you and you're not flickering. Am I all right, or am I flickering a bit, or am I flickering a lot? Just give me a thumb sign. Can you see me all right? Am I flickering or am I not? Or what about Liz? Chris is obviously struggling with that question. I'm flickering quite a lot, am I, Liz? Okay. But can you hear me okay, Liz? Yeah, okay, right, I'll carry on.
Sound is okay.
Yeah, I'll probably go.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be good if we had, I don't know, say a 4-step process that would tell us the words to use when we want to confront somebody? Thanks, Chris, for the message. And there's a magic 4-step process which you can use in any difficult situation, and it will tell you what to say. And here it is. So I'm just wondering whether does anybody want to give me an example of a situation? You don't have to, but let's say example of, I'll just put this in the chat. If you want to put an example, I'll use it. But I'm going to use the example that my neighbour's dog comes through a hole in the fence and poos on my lawn. That's an example I've got, which did used to happen a while ago in a place I lived. It's actually their cat, but imagine it's a dog. In fact, I've got another example. Somebody on a course told me that their neighbour had stolen his cat. He said, I know my cat's in there. I can see it through the window. They've got my cat in there. But he hadn't done anything about it. He hadn't said anything. So the first thing you should say when you want to say something difficult to your neighbour or anybody, relative, colleague, anybody, would be, I understand. Okay, I understand. It's a bit of an odd start, isn't it? But it's a really important thing to say before you really get started. So you'd say, you know, you probably didn't realize it was my cat, but that is my cat you've got. Or the neighbor coming through, you'd say, I know it's hard to control where your dog goes, and he obviously has got to poo somewhere, but he's pooing in my garden. Okay, so you start with just trying to understand their position. Or if you want to complain about something, when you ring up and you get the person on the help desk, a really good start is to say, I know it's not your fault this has happened, but it's happened and I'm unhappy. So always start with understanding their position, because it puts them in a good mood and it makes you look reasonable, but also it takes away their excuses. They can't say, well, it's not my fault. Well, you know, the dog's got to poo somewhere, because you've already said, I know he's got to poo somewhere, but. Okay. So it takes away their excuse. So if somebody turns up late to a meeting, you can say, you know, I know that you're really, really busy and it takes, you know, the traffic's variable, but you're late to my meeting again and it annoys me. Okay, so you've got that. That's a really nice soft start. Screen's going crazy. What's happening? It's really odd. Well, we'll bear with, we'll see. Now, the second part of this 4-step process is to say how you feel. Again, this isn't obvious. Certainly in England, we're not very good at saying how we feel. And in fact, you know, I was packed off to a boarding school at the age of 7, and they taught us to never say how you feel. You must never show any weakness, or, you know, you'll be teased and bullied and stuff. So, you know, if you don't like something, you must never say. Or if you're frightened of something, you must never say. But for this process, we must say how we feel. You must say, you know, I don't like it when your dog comes into my garden. It's ruining my garden. It makes me unhappy. Or the person who turns up late, you must say it's really irritating because, I've prepared, we've got everybody else here at the meeting and you're not here and we can't start and it's really frustrating. You've got to put some emotion in because that's where the power comes from. If you don't put emotion into it, there's no incentive to change. Why should they bother to change? But if you're unhappy, then they've got to do something about that. If they want the relationship to carry on at all, they've got to do something about it. Also, they can't argue with how you feel. So if you say it makes me unhappy, they can't say, well, I don't, no, you're not. You're not unhappy. You can say, well, I am. That's just how I feel. Maybe it was at my end. Right. So, okay. So we've said how we feel. That's where the power comes from. And also, people can't argue with how you feel. They can't say, well, no, it doesn't upset you, or it shouldn't upset you. You can say, well, it does. Your dog coming into my garden upsets me, and that's a problem. Right. The next thing you need to say is what you want. I want. Which is obvious, really, isn't it? At some point, you have to say what you want. Often people don't. Often people say, I just don't like you doing that. But they don't say, and what I'd like you to do is. So, for example, they'll go, oh, the office is too cold. I don't like a cold office. So they're saying how they feel, but they're not saying, can we have a heater? And it just sounds like nagging or moaning if you don't say what you want. If you say what you want, suddenly it becomes constructive. So it's so much better to say what you want. And particularly bosses who are busy. If you go to your busy boss and say, the office is too cold, they just think, oh, we'll get on with it. But if you say, can I have a heater? They'll go, yeah, whatever, go and get a heater. So come to them with a solution. It's so much better. Okay, so step 3, say what you want, even though it seems obvious that you want a heater. And then the final step, which people often miss out, is to say, is that okay? Can you see what I mean? Just to get some sort of confirmation from the person. So imagine if I walked into your office and I did only the first 3. So I walked in, I said, I know you've been busy recently, but I'm sick of the state of this office. It's a complete shambles and I want you to tidy it up. And I walked out again. You're going, ooh, Chris is in a bad mood today. Ooh. And I don't know whether you're going to do it or not, do I? So what I must do, I must come in and say, I know you've been busy, sick of the sight of this. I want you to tidy up. Could you do that for me? Just that last bit where I get you to say yes or no. Because if you say yes, I've got you. Even if you don't do it, I've got you because you said you would and you haven't. So now you've broken your promise as well as having an untidy office. So if you say yes, I've got you. But if you say no, then I can say, well, why not? And we can have a discussion about it. And maybe you're too busy this week. Maybe next week would be fine. But we can talk about that and we can resolve it. But if you're not going to do it, I need to know. So you need to always get a yes at the end and say, what do you think? So with my neighbour and his dog, I need to say, look, I know that it's hard to control the dog, but it upsets me to find poo on my lawn. It ruins my enjoyment of my garden. It'd be really great if you could fix that hole in the fence. Could you do that for me? And then I'll see whether the neighbour says yes or no. So this is how to be assertive, how to calmly say what you want. So I'm respecting his rights. I'm understanding his position. I'm checking he's okay with it. But in the middle, I'm asserting my rights and saying how I feel and what I want. So if somebody's too aggressive, you could say to them, look, I know you're annoyed about this, and I totally get that. I probably would be as well. But I think you're being a bit too aggressive and, swearing at me or whatever isn't probably helpful. Could we talk calmly about how to get it resolved? What do you think? So you can call them out for being too aggressive. And if you're being too submissive, you can use this as a way to say how you feel. Okay? So that's a bit about incomplete skills. I want to go on now to the third level of difficultness. And this is people who are actually evil. That's the E of die. And actually, is anybody actually evil? Even really, really bad people, maybe they've just been made like that by their upbringing and their experiences. Maybe they're just broken people, You could almost say it isn't their fault, although, at some point you can't blame it on your parents. At some age you have to take some responsibility, don't you? But, at what point does somebody go from just a little bit incompetent to evil? And I think it's probably to do with knowing you're doing it. If you do bad things and you don't realize, that's incompetence. And part of the 4th step is about making them realize and say, look, have you noticed that you come to this meeting late every time? And they go, oh, do I? I didn't realize that. And you can say, well, yeah, you do. So, we can bring it into their consciousness. But I think the people who I would call evil are people who do bad things and they know they're doing it. And maybe they think that other people haven't noticed, or maybe they think they're getting away with it, but maybe they literally just don't care what other people think. And then you're into sort of sociopaths and psychopaths and stuff, aren't you? And it's hard to know where the line is. And I think you could say that some aggressive people are actually evil, and because they just don't care about other people's rights. Whereas some aggressive people are just a bit incompetent. They don't realize they're being a bit aggressive, or they don't realize there's an alternative to being aggressive. They could be assertive. You could still get the woman to pay for the dent in your car without shouting at her. In fact, you're probably more likely to. And maybe no one's ever told them that. So I think, this little diagram here could apply to both incomplete and to evil people, actually. So what can we do then about people who are evil? And I think the first thing is, again, the 4-step process. So you could call them on it and say, look, I know you feel strongly about this, and you may not think that I've noticed, or you may not think it affects me, but it does, and I'm not happy with it. So you can call them out on whatever it is they're doing. But I want to tell you about a particular thing that evil people do for the last bit of this talk, which I think you'll find interesting. And it's something called the drama triangle. And it was invented by a guy called Karpman back in the 1960s. Karpman. By the way, if you want to know all about any of this stuff, there's loads on my website, chriscroft.com. That's my one advert for myself. You can just have a look at my website, chriscroft.com. Or follow me on LinkedIn. By all means, that would be great. I post every day about stuff like this on LinkedIn. So Karpman's drama triangle. And basically on his drama triangle, he came up with this idea that people take positions in a triangle, and the positions are persecutor, rescuer, and victim. Okay? So you could be the persecutor, you could be the victim, or you could be the rescuer. That's what Karpman said. And he said there are all sorts of games that people play as you move around this triangle. And in fact, there was a famous book written by somebody called Eric Byrne called Games People Play. But don't buy it, because it's really difficult to understand. Games People Play, brilliant title, terrible book. In fact, it was originally published under the name of Transactional Analysis in Psychotherapy, and it didn't sell very well. He changed the name to Games People Play, and it sold millions. If you do want to read a book on all of this stuff, there's a book called Born to Win by James and Jongerward. There's quite a few books called Born to Win, but there's a book called Born to Win by James and Jongerward, which I think is the best book describing this. But anyway, I'm going to quickly tell you about the drama triangle, what people do and what can you do about it. And that's the last bit of this talk. It doesn't cover all of evil people, but it's a big part of what evil people do. So, for example, my neighbour is a games player, and he comes around and he goes, "Oh, Chris, I see you've got your new windows. Oh, so what did you go for in the end? Oh, you went for the PVC, did you? Yeah, I would have got wood myself, but they look all right, I suppose." Now, what's he doing? Where is he on the triangle? And he's pretending to be a rescuer, isn't he? He's pretending to be sort of nice. Oh, I like you. Oh, you've got your new windows, Chris, or whatever. But what he's really doing is persecuting me, isn't he? He's going, I wouldn't have got those. You should have got the wooden ones, really, Chris. So he's persecuting me. And if I say to him, I don't like you criticizing my windows, he'll go, oh, I was only trying to help. There's no need to be like that. And he'll then move over to being a rescuer. I was only giving you some advice. And if you don't want it, that's up to you. So he's persecuting me, but he's pretending to be a rescuer so he can get away with persecuting me. And I'm definitely the victim in this game. Okay? And he's playing a game called Only Trying to Help You. Only Trying to Help You. So that's the game where you say, well, I wouldn't do it like that, or oh, I wouldn't have done that, or oh, no, you don't want to do that. And all those sorts of things where you're kind of implying that the person is a bit stupid or doesn't know enough. and that you're the expert, but you're only trying to help. Only trying to help. So that's the first game. There are lots of games. They've all got great names. Like, for example, there's one called Yes, But, where a person comes to you with a problem. What shall I do about, I don't know, the fact that it takes me an hour to take my kids to school every morning, and it's, the traffic's terrible, and it's an hour each way, and then it's another hour each way to pick them up in the afternoon. I'm spending 4 hours a day taking the kids to school. So they come to you as a victim, and they want to be rescued. And you say, well, can't you find a school that's nearer? And they go, yes, but the local school's terrible. I can't send my kids there. And you go, well, maybe you could put them on the bus. Oh, yeah, but the thing is, they wouldn't be safe, would they? I mean, there's all these people who kidnap children and things like that. And you go, well, maybe you could share lifts with some other parents. And they go, yeah, but the trouble is, I don't trust the driving of my friends, and you go, well, maybe you could move house. And they go, yeah, but the trouble is, you've only just got the house the way we like it. So in the end, you say, well, so in other words, they don't want to be rescued. So in the end, you say, well, in that case, I just don't know. And they go, huh, you're no use. And suddenly they're persecuting you for the fact that you have not been able to rescue them. And suddenly you've gone from the rescuer to the victim. So you've moved around the triangle. Originally, it was they're the victim, you're the rescuer. And suddenly they're persecuting you and you've become the victim. And that's called Yes, But. I don't know if you know people who play that game. I want to tell you about 3 or 4 more games, and then we'll talk about what can you do about games generally, okay? So another game, what should we have next? Well, there's one called Now I've Got You. Got you. It's a persecutor game. It's played by bosses quite often. And this is where bosses say, any problem at all, just come and see me. My door's always open. And when you go to the boss with a problem, they go, what? You've done what? Oh my God, you idiot. Why did you do that? And so you went as somebody wanting to be rescued. You thought they were going to be, they told you they'd be a rescuer. And when you actually go, you find, oh no, they're a persecutor. And it's Now I've Got You. So I don't know whether that's ever happened to you or whether you've done that to somebody who works for you. I don't know. Because sometimes it is hard to be a rescuer when someone does something really stupid, isn't it? But the thing about these games is that it's not a one-off. People do this all the time. People have a particular game they play. So my neighbour is always playing Only Trying to Help. When he comes round, I know he's going to go, oh, I see you've got your new car, Chris. What did you get? Oh, did you? Oh, I would have got the one with the bigger engine. Do you find it's a bit underpowered, the 2-litre? Well, it's up to you, as long as you're happy. And he just leaves me thinking, So he does that all the time because it makes him feel good. Finding little faults in what I've done makes him feel good. And that's the payoff that he gets from the game. Is he conscious that he's playing it? Probably not. Actually, he probably just plays it constantly and feels good. Doesn't realize that he's annoying everybody, that everyone in the world hates him. Let's look at a couple of other games. There's some interesting victim games, actually. There's one called Kick Me. This is where the waiter in the restaurant brings you the stuff, but they've forgotten the cutlery. And they go, oh, God, I'm hopeless. Look at me. I've forgotten the cutlery. What am I like? And they bring the cutlery and then they, spill a bit of soup and they go, oh, God, sorry, I spilt some of the soup. God, I'm hopeless. I'm sorry. I'm just hopeless, aren't I? And so they're just saying, look at me, I'm hopeless. Now, if you say, no, it's all right, it's all right, you're giving them permission to carry on being hopeless. And in fact, some people will actively become more and more useless if you give them permission. But it definitely means they can get away with being hopeless, right? But if you say, yes, you are hopeless, why don't you get a grip? They'll go, well, there's no need to be like that. I'm doing the best I can. And then they'll accuse you of being a persecutor when they're the one, spilling soup on you or whatever it is. So that's Kick Me. Oh, God, I'm hopeless. What am I like? There's another victim game, which is It's All Right for You. Well, I'll put that one here. It's all right for you. I've got a friend who plays this actually, and he's always being made redundant or getting fired from his job because he's hopeless. I only know him because he plays the guitar in the band that I'm in. He's a very good guitarist, but utterly useless when it comes to work. And he's always going, it's all right for you, Chris, with your bloody training job that you do that earns all that money. It's all right for you. And I'm thinking, well, sorry for existing. So he's persecuting me because he's a victim. And I'm thinking, well, I'm not the one who's, you know, firing you and making your life miserable. It's all right for you with your perfect life, Chris. So that's a game that he plays. It's all right for you. Um, there's two more I want to tell you about, actually. There's Blemish, which is quite amusing. Blemish. And this is where, let's suppose I'm talking to Chris there, and I'm talking about Liz behind her back. And I'm going, Chris, that Liz, I mean, she means well, doesn't she? And I mean, she works hard, bless her, but I don't know. Sometimes her attention to detail is just not very good, is it, Chris? And what's Chris going to say? Because if he goes, yeah, I know, then I've got him. Because I can then go to Liz and say, Liz, you won't believe what Chris said about you just now. He said your attention to detail was terrible. I think that's awful. You shouldn't let him say things like that about you. And that's another game, by the way, which is called Let's You and Him Fight. So going back to Chris, when I say that Liz, she's a good person, really, but she's got this one blemish, which is, let's say it's attention to detail. If he goes, well, no, I think she's fine. I go, well, you can't see it, you see, but, trust me, it's there. So there's pressure on him to agree with me. But if he does agree, I can then go and play Let's You and Them Fight. Let's You and Them Fight. Which happens a lot in organizations. Oh, you won't believe what the marketing department said about you. Oh, or whatever it might be. And that's Let's You and Them Fight. Because what you're doing when you say that is you're saying to the person, you're a victim of something that's going on over there. I'm just the rescuer telling you. But, you shouldn't put up with that person persecuting you. You should persecute them back. So you can see from this that there's a whole world of bad behavior, and it nearly all is on this triangle. I think it's an amazing theory that Cartman came up with. Everything's on this triangle. People who bear a grudge, where are they on the triangle? So people who bear a grudge, they go, well, I was a victim, he gave me back my stapler and it was empty and he didn't refill it 10 years ago. And I'm going to carry that grudge and one day I'm going to get revenge and I'm going to persecute him because of that. So, that's grudges are somewhere between victim and persecutor, aren't they? And revenge generally is a sort of, I'm a victim, so I'm going to persecute. What's that Italian phrase? Before you take revenge, order 2 coffins. I think they say, don't they? Because you suffer as well. It's crazy, really, trying to get revenge on somebody. And then you've got things like sulking. No, I'm not going to talk to you. No, because you didn't do that. You didn't tidy up your plates after dinner, so I'm not going to speak to you. So sulking, again, that's a victim persecute type of a thing, isn't it? Or people say, I was only joking. When I said you were fat earlier on, I was only joking. And that's a sort of, only joking is a sort of rescuer thing. You've persecuted somebody, but you're claiming you were rescuing, but you weren't. You were persecuting them. And one more example, going back to when I was at boarding school when I was little, I got the cane occasionally because I was naughty, and I was a bit naughty, I'll admit it. And before the headmaster gave you 6 whacks of the cane, he would say, this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you, which is a version of saying it's for your own good that I'm going to punish you. It's for your own good is what a persecutor says to a victim, pretending they're a rescuer. And this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. I remember thinking, no, it's not. It's going to hurt me. I know that. It's not going to hurt you. But by saying it's going to hurt me more than, he's saying he's a victim. He's saying, I don't want to do this. I'm not going to get any pleasure from it at all, from caning you, young Croft. But I'm going to persecute you because I want to rescue you and make you a better person. Now, maybe he did make me a better person in the end. I don't know. But it didn't feel like it at the time. And I remember just thinking, that's just ridiculous. He's not the victim in this. I am. So this persecutor victim rescue thing, it's there all the time in everything. When somebody says, is that the thanks I get? Or, if only you'd listened to me. If only you'd listened to me. Well, it serves you right now. They're a sort of victim rescue. I tried to rescue you, but you didn't listen. So, so you're a victim now, but also so am I, really, because I wish you'd listened to me, but you didn't. So that's somewhere down there, isn't it? So if what can we do about games? And the first thing is just to realize that they are a games player. It doesn't matter which game. You may not be able to identify exactly what the game is, but some people just feel gamey. If you can't work out, are they persecuting me? Or they say they're the victim, but I am, or they say they're the rescuer, but I don't feel they're rescuing me. I feel they're persecuting me, really. If you just get that feeling that there's something going on, you know it's a game. Okay? And what can you do about games? And I think there are probably three things you can do, really, three main things. And I think one of them is that you can just live with it comfortably. I think in your personal life, I think living with the game's a bad idea, but I think at work, sometimes you have to just live with annoying people. And once you've realized what they're doing, it's not so annoying. You can just think, oh, here comes my neighbor again. He's probably going to criticize my windows or my car. And in fact, that's what we do. My wife nudges me, she says, he's doing it again. And I go, yeah, I know. But it doesn't matter because we've got his number. We know what he's doing. So that's one option, is just to live with it. Um, I think a better option, though, is to call them out on it and say, I don't like it. And I would say use the phrase I don't like it when. I don't like it when. So really that's part of this fourth step, isn't it? So when my neighbour says, oh, I wouldn't have got those windows, I can go, thanks for the advice. That's I understand. But I don't like it when you criticise choices I've already made. Too late to change it. I don't want you to tell me. And he'll go, well, I was only trying to help. And I go, I know you were, but I don't like it. And he'll go, all right then. And just tell him, I don't like it when you do that. Um, so and at least it brings into his consciousness that he's doing something that is upsetting you. Now, if he then carries on doing it, then now he's an evil person rather than just an incompetent one. Um, and then you go to the final choice, which is to say, have you noticed? Have you noticed? Okay, so what we're doing here with assertiveness, you've always got the choice to go from the one-off to the habit. So you can say you're late for the meeting and I don't like it. Or you can say you've got a habit of being late for my meetings and I don't like it. And I would say always go for the one-off first. Just say, look, when you turn up late, it's a problem. But if they keep doing it, you've got to call them out on the habit. And that's a bigger thing now. You're attacking them on something bigger, aren't you? But you're doing it for good reason because you want to improve the world. You want to improve their behavior, your meetings, the effect they have on everyone else, not just you. So I think you absolutely do have a right to say to them, look, I'm not happy with this. Okay. So you say to them, have you noticed that you are almost always late to my meetings? Or with my next door neighbor, I could say, have you noticed that quite often when you come around here, you criticize things in order to make yourself feel better? And he's going to go, he will deny it. He'll go, oh, I do not, I don't do that. And then you can say, well, shall I point it out next time you do it? Okay, so when he says no, I don't do it, you can say, shall I point it out next time you do it? I'll just put pointed out down here. And he'll then go, well, yeah, all right then, if you want. And you've got him now because he can't play that game again. If he does, you can go, look, you're doing it again. There you go again. So you've got him now. Or if they're playing yes, but, you can say, have you noticed how you come to me with a problem? Every time I try to solve it, you have some reason why the solution's no good. And in the end, you tell me I'm useless. And that's what you do every time. And they go, do I? I. And quite often games players haven't noticed they're doing it. That's quite a heavy thing to do, to tell somebody they're a games player. Because, you're almost telling them their life's built on a sham. I mean, you're telling them that they're doing something that probably annoys everyone they deal with. But I think you're doing them a big favor. It's like telling somebody that they smell or something. You're doing them a favor because now they know about the effect they've been having on everybody else for years. And they've got the option to change it or not, haven't they? So I think to politely just say, by the way, have you noticed that you've got this habit? I think it's quite strong, but I think it's your duty to try to improve the world. And so that's something you can do about evil people. point out the game. And you could even use the whole 4-step process if you want and say, I don't like it. It'd be really great if you didn't do it. Would that be okay? You know, you can just use that process, can't you, to say that you don't like it. But have you noticed is the way to do it. So there we are. We've looked at people who are different and the idea of meeting them in the middle. I don't think it's reasonable to ask other people to change. I think we've got to change and be better at meeting the middle. We've looked at people who are incomplete, who really ought to change, and they ought to turn up on time, and they ought to be less aggressive or less passive, but they're probably not going to change. I think we should call them on it. It's worth a try, but we probably will have to adapt to them. And then we've looked at evil people who are either really aggressive, in which case we've got to use the 4 steps, or evil people who play games. And the options of what we can do with them. So that is everything I wanted to talk about. There is a little bit of time if anybody wants to send in any questions. You want to? Do you want to put? If you've got any questions, you can put them in the chat. Questions. But I'm going to send Daniel after this. I'm going to send him a copy of this. I'll also send you a couple of other things. Actually, I'll send you a neat version of the 4-step process. And I'll send you a neat version of my games players, just so you've got those for reference. So yeah, I feel quite chuffed. I fixed my flickering screen by crawling under my desk. That was pretty engineering of me, wasn't it? So yeah, that's been useful. Thank you for that comment, that kind comment there, Mariella. It's good to know that you're out there and you can hear me and that you can see me. And the recording will be there as well if you want to go back over anything I've said. I've been piling through the material in this hour. Didn't mention the 4 steps, the use of please or thank you or sorry. Oh, yeah, let me answer that one. I think it's fine to use please. And that would be in section 3, where you say it'd be really great if you could do this. Could you do it for me, please? Or actually, maybe that would be in step 4, actually, where you say, could you do that for me, please? So yeah, I think please would be in number 4. You would say thank you after they've said yes, but you shouldn't say necessarily sorry. Some people say you should never say sorry. They say it's weak. I don't think it is weak. I think it just doesn't matter whether you say sorry or not. Like, you know, if I said, look, you're a waste of space and I'm really sorry, but I'm going to have to kill you now with this gun and then I shoot you. I think that's pretty assertive. I don't think it's weak to say sorry before I shoot you. Not that I would. So I think the word sorry is quite interesting. I don't know where it would be in here. I mean, you could say, look, you know, I'm really sorry, but I don't like it. But I think that kind of isn't right. I think you would just say, look, you're doing this and I don't like it. And then you shouldn't be apologizing for what you want. I think you say, look, you know, this is what I want. So I don't think you necessarily should use the word sorry. I'm not against it or in favor of it. As long as you make a clear statement of how you feel and what you want, then that's the main thing. But you should say thank you and please, definitely, yeah. What's the next? Oh, yeah. Foivos says, what's the next thing to do if they go into an aggressive or passive-aggressive response? Like, that's your problem. Well, I think the answer to that, the first answer is to go round again. So a very quick example of this, right? This is a true story. A friend of mine's wife left him. He got home one day and there was a message saying, I'm going to call him Steve, all right, because that is his name. There's a message saying, dear Steve, I've left you. I've taken the kids. And I've left you permanently. That's it. Our marriage is over. And he's actually an engineer. Oh my God, he's probably listened to this. And he rang her up because he's an engineer, and he said, I just want to know why. Because we do, don't we? We want to know why everything happens. And he said, why have you left me? And she said, because you never cooked me a meal, ever. If you loved me, you'd have cooked me a meal every now and then. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm thinking that may not be the real reason why she left him. But anyway, she actually ran off with his best friend, who'd been trying to tempt her away for years. Run away with me. I'll treat you better than Steve, he'd been saying. So-called best friend. Now, my point is, the 4-step process could have saved their marriage imagine if she'd said, look, Steve, I know you don't like cooking, but I feel a bit neglected. It's a big deal to me whether you cook or not. and it'd be really nice if you could cook me a meal every now and then. Could you do that? And he might have just said, yes, okay, didn't realize. But he might have said, um, well, yeah, I can see that. I can see that it would matter to you, but I really hate cooking. And, I feel that I work really hard. I earn lots of money for this marriage. And she did have a job as well, actually, but his was better paid. So, I do earn loads of money. And all I want is you to cook. If you could just cook, that's the only thing I want you to do, really. It's all I ask, you to cook occasionally, most nights. Surely you could do that for me, couldn't you? And she would then say, well, yeah, I totally get that you feel you shouldn't have to and that you don't like it, but it's a big deal to me. And it really would make a difference. You just cook occasionally. Could you do that? And so if he then went all aggressive and said, well, you're useless and, you know, call yourself a wife, or something. Suppose he went, really horrible. At least she's been through that and she's explored that with him. And now she knows that she's told him it's a problem, and he's gone up a level. He's now not cooking. He's gone worse than not cooking. He's now not caring about her feelings. So that, we've learnt a lot. And I think I would then probably leave him and go off with his best friend. But she could still persist one more time and say, well, there's no need to be like that. I mean, you're obviously upset and things, but I feel you're being very aggressive and unreasonable. And all I want to do is talk about this and get this resolved. Surely we can find some solution to this, which, by the way, might be that they eat out once a week or they get a takeaway delivered once a week or something like that. Maybe she would feel that he cared if he got a takeaway once a week. And he could easily do that. So there might be a win-win they could find. Getting a takeaway once a week could have saved their marriage if they'd only talked about it. So I think what I would say to that question is that if the person is aggressive, firstly, you now know more about them. Secondly, you can still remain calm. And if you remain calm when the other person's being aggressive, quite often they apologize later. And they go, sorry about earlier on, I got a bit aerated and I shouldn't have, and I know I was wrong and I'm sorry. And you win. So you win if you remain calm. It's always the best solution to remain calm, isn't it? Is there a question from Chris there? What happens when you're asking for something during the fourth step? The other person is now using this as a bargaining opportunity to get something they want. Oh, you want that? Then I want this. That's a great question. I like it. Well, I mean, the answer is you could bargain. Why not? I mean, we're into negotiating now, which is a whole other subject. And by the way, I've got a course on Udemy that you can get for about 15 quid that will save you thousands and thousands of pounds on houses. They're just saying, I'm #1 in the world on Udemy. If you put negotiating in, I'm #1 in the world. But to answer your question, if there's something they want, we need to know about it. I mean, if it's your partner in life, wife, husband, partner, whatever, then we need to know if there's something they want. And maybe it's okay to bargain. But also you can ignore their bargaining position. Goodbye, Damien, by the way. You can ignore their position and you can just say, well, I'll talk about that later. But at the moment, my problem is this and I want this. And, no, you can't have that other thing. But I'm not happy and I'm asking for this. So with negotiation, there are no rules. You can ask for stuff, you can give other stuff away or not, or you might give away a very small amount. You might say, well, I'm not going to give you that much, but I'll give you this much if you'll give me this. And they might be happy with that, of course. And so you might get what you want for a very small cost. And every relationship is a negotiation in the end, isn't it? Not just marriages, but everybody you work with. Your boss, for example, doesn't have total power over you. So if your boss is asking you for something that is quite a hassle, I think you should negotiate. I think you should say, well, I could do that, but it's going to take a lot of time. But if you could take this bit off my hands, then I could do this thing you're asking for. I absolutely think you should negotiate. So I think negotiating is fine. It's all part of the game. Right, we should probably finish. I'm actually going out for a meal in a minute because it's 6:15 over here in England. Bizarrely, we've got a chat group with our whole road, a WhatsApp group, and I've emailed the whole road and said, should we go out for a meal? We're going out to an Italian restaurant tonight. And about 15 of them said yes. So there's people I don't even know, and we're going to go and have a meal. So it's quite fun, isn't it? So yeah, probably it's time to let you all go. Hope it's been useful. Please do follow me on LinkedIn. Just put Chris Croft into LinkedIn. You'll see me there. But you can also go to my website, and there's a load of free stuff, or YouTube. I've got about 400 videos on YouTube covering whatever you might ever want to know. So have a look on there. Happiness, time management, project management. There's all kinds of stuff on YouTube. So maybe check me out there. Great. Thank you for the thank yous, everybody. It's been great to see you, the ones I could see. Thanks for the questions. And yeah, have a good Christmas, everybody. And maybe see you again sometime.
Chris,
Bye for now.
Thank you, everyone.
Engineers rule. Engineers. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Daniel, for organising it as well.
Yeah, thank you as well. Chris's connections and email addresses are in the meeting invitation, so you can find it from there if it's not so difficult. Okay, thank you very much, and
bye,
I will get this recording sorted out and probably finish up on the IMechE YouTube channel.
Yes, put it on there. Good idea. Yeah. Cheers, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank
or best
you.
of the day if you're over in America. Bye.
Bye.